Our last speaker today is Gary. And Gary and I have been in this industry a long time, and I think he actually has been in it longer than me here in California. He's been working for CRA. He's helped start, he's a leading advocate of zero waste. He teaches classes. He's an organizer. He's a master networker. He represents the Grassroots Recycling Network on the board of the Recycling Organization of North America, which is who he's representing today. And he's one of the founders and the past president of the National Recycling Coalition. He's also recently a town council member of the city of Loomis and was mayor in 2010. So Gary brings a lot to the table. So Gary, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Heidi, and it's a pleasure to be here today. First of all, for Rona, why we're here, Recycling Organizations of North America was formed about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when the National Recycling Coalition was going bankrupt, and the organization was formed as an alternative to the National Recycling Coalition in order to keep the national focus on recycling in America. Since that time, NRC hasn't gone bankrupt. They reorganized, they restructured, they reworked their approach and finances, and as a result, NRC is now starting to move forward. Rona is working with NRC to try and figure out what the respective roles would be for the future, whether we recombine, continue as separate organizations, and next week's National Resource Recycling Conference will be evaluating those things. But over the course of the last 2 years, as Rona has moved forward, we've placed a high priority on domestic market development as one of our key messages. We've held a number of webinars on recycling markets, with APR on plastic markets, with BioCore on bioplastics, an interesting one with Massachusetts, North Carolina, and others on bans as a market development tool to generate a source of resources on a regular basis locally. Rona is also working on national standards for sustainable resource management training programs. So we have trained professionals in the field for once, rather than everyone coming to it like we all have without the training and having to learn on the job. So Rona's been working on development of national standards for sustainable resource management training programs. If you go to recyclingorganizations.org, you can see the progress on those certification efforts. In terms of recommendations, we don't have specific recommendations from Rona, but I do have some recommendations. First is to support zero waste and challenge businesses and communities to adopt zero waste goals and plans. We're seeing a tremendous outpouring of support for zero waste around the country, particularly from businesses. Businesses are leading the way to zero waste. In the downturn in the economy, businesses are finding the zero waste message resonates because every zero waste business has saved money. It helps them become more efficient, reduce their liability, reduce their global footprint for greenhouse gases, and build support in the community and with their clients and customers. As part of zero waste, we encourage the adoption of the ZWIA definition of zero waste, which says don't burn or bury. And as John Davis highlighted, you can generate more energy you can conserve more energy than generate it through proper materials management policies. And it all depends on where you set the life cycle. If you look upstream, the life cycle analysis will show every time that reducing, reusing, and recycling is preferable to burning our waste. You can generate energy from discarded materials, organics, through biological processes in a zero-waste world, like anaerobic digestion. But the priority, the highest and best use, is for the materials management, which is the now national policy of the EPA. Is sustainable materials management is the direction EPA is moving in. There's more value in reducing and reusing in materials management than burning, and that's why we need to move forward to zero waste. And a challenge from the state asking businesses and communities to adopt the goal and plan for it would set the state on fire. We already have more zero waste communities than anyone else in the country in California, with such a challenge from the state, which could be done administratively by CalRecycle tomorrow. That would be a tremendous boost to initiatives to figure all the details out that we've been talking about here today. There are a couple other quick other suggestions. Second is design for recyclability and materials management. This has been a long-time push by ISRI in memory of Joe Massey, who just passed away. I'd like to bring together our ISRI partners to support design for recyclability and to support Patty Moore's comments, which I heard at the end of her presentation about local governments need to set the standards. Conservatory, in their landmark study a couple of years ago on single-stream recycling, said it was all about local governments setting the standards. And you're the linchpin. Haulers, processors will do what you tell them to. And in Northern California, the standards are set that ADC is not allowable. For example, that's the type of thing we need to be doing for the highest and best use of materials and for local...
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify for people who don't know what ADC is. Not everybody's acronym junkies like us.
Alternative daily cover.
Yeah. So the landfill has to have cover every day, and it needs 6 inches of something. And so sometimes they're using organics, and sometimes they can use alternative daily cover like plastic tarps and so forth. I just want to make sure you understand what he's
which undermines the economics of composting, which is the highest, the higher and better use of those organics. The third point is supporting John's push for the local use of resources. Totally agree that organics is about 50% of everything we're dealing with. It isn't something we can ship overseas. It is something we need to address on how to site those facilities. Come on, gang, we need to get going on figuring this out. I cannot believe since the California Waste Board adopted getting 50% out by 2020, that we haven't moved faster to get there. What's going on here? Okay. Don't we have an industry that can do that?
We are going to talk about that today, so we don't have to get too mad at the audience. I think they want.
I'm trying to pump it. Heidi, let me finish.
We did say 5 minutes, though, Gary, in all fairness.
Reusables, the most jobs that are out there in reusables. In Los Angeles, we're throwing away $100 million. 40 million of them come from 2% of the waste stream, reusables. The jobs and the value is in the reusables. We need to figure out how to support our reuse industries. And restructuring RFPs, contracts, and ordinances to get the price signals right are really critical. And get recycling to be part of green jobs. I went to the Good Green Jobs Conference last year. I was amazed. There was virtually no speeches on recycling, yet we're 25% of all green jobs in California. We need to get engaged with the green jobs effort. The number one recommendation that I suggest from a RONA perspective is we need to continue and build on this meeting to develop a broad coalition of materials management council or coalition. I call it the 3M Council, but I think that name is taken. We need to build this on an ongoing basis so we have a steering committee that's working out for all of our coalition's interests in moving forward together. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So, Gary, just so I'm clear, the 3M, the suggestion, what exactly? Who?
A materials management markets council. We did this with climate change. A number of years ago, CRA felt that climate change was a pressing issue. We were AWOL, hadn't been at the table, needed to do something. So we set up within CRA the Recyclers Global Warming Council, and that set up the Zero Waste for Global Cooling Call, which was a network of all the different organizations that weren't in CRA. And we need to do the same thing for green recycling jobs. We need to have a vehicle where all of us, not within one existing organization, but have all the organizations lined up around the table on an ongoing basis, on monthly calls, working with our members to get things done.
Okay, very good.
Quick question.
Okay.
I think we're, zero waste is a great goal. We should never go.
Do you have a mic?
Zero waste, but I think it's consensus of this group, even at the everything I'm saying.
Okay. Okay.
Is that we want jobs. Divert it where?
Okay, so the question from the audience is, we want jobs and we want zero waste, but where are the jobs? And I think from what I understand Gary's talking about is we've seen studies that say that there's more jobs in resource recycling, recovery, remanufacturing than there are in just throwing it in a landfill or putting it into a what they call black box technology, whether it be a conversion technology, a waste to energy facility. And so it's That's the debate, that's the discussion, and that's what different people have brought to the discussion today.
And the majority of jobs are in manufacturing in the recycling arena, and the majority of new jobs in California are in reuse. And zero waste is all about focusing first on reducing and reusing, and then recycling and composting the rest. And the reason for that, businesses have shown that they've saved the most money by reducing waste. They save the next most money by setting up reuse systems like returnable shipping containers and pallets. And then they save a little bit of money on recycling and composting if the rates have been set correctly by the local communities. And that rate setting needs to be revised, and zero waste asks communities to look at that. AB 939 did not do that. That's why zero waste is important, to get everyone to redevelop their entire system, because the system is broken. We need EPR, we need zero waste, and that's where we'll get the jobs.
And I think there's probably a majority of agreement that there's a lot of different tools in the toolbox, and there's different ways to look at almost very similar concepts, whether you call it zero waste or producer responsibility or just source reduction and, getting design, green design. These things all kind of work together, and it's a matter of just how you approach it or what name you label it sometimes.